Tokyo, a city that never stops moving. Where order feels like perfection, where silence feels like respect. Every street is spotless, every train on time, every ritual carried out with quiet discipline that seems flawless. A glimpse of the future. But behind the neon lights and the polite bows lies another Tokyo, a Tokyo of addictions, of loneliness, of shadows that the surface cannot hide. Pachinko halls that never close, districts that trade in desire, children who vanish into the night, a nation obsessed with order yet haunted by isolation. This is not the Tokyo of travel brochures. This is the Tokyo tourists don't see.
Tokyo is a city that amazes me in many ways. Not all of them are positive though. Tokyo is a city that is extremely well organized, the streets that are super clean, people that respect silence, and the world-famous Shibuya crossing where 2,000 to 3,000 people cross at the same time, and yet it's somehow not at all chaotic. Tokyo is probably the weirdest city I've been to so far. Weird because Tokyo is so well organized that sometimes it will make you feel out of place because we as foreigners don't know the unwritten rules. However, there's also a very dark side of Tokyo, a side that most tourists probably don't get to see. It is a side that you can only see if you pay a lot of attention to the details or if you dive deep into the research of Tokyo. I've shown you the bright side of Tokyo already, and in today's video I will show you its dark side.
At first glance, Tokyo is perfect. Even in chaos, there is harmony. But the truth is, nothing is ever perfect, and neither is Tokyo.
This here is Shinjuku. It is a very touristic district and also extremely crowded. It's a district with so many neon lights and advertisement, you really don't know where to look first. However, this is also a district that is known for the red light district in Tokyo. It is meant to be one of the most dangerous or the most dangerous district of Tokyo. However, Japan is in general an extremely safe country, and even walking here now, I don't feel anxious or anything, like not at all. However, this is probably a district that many Japanese don't feel that proud of. It is a rather dirty district, and I can definitely confirm this. While Tokyo is a super clean city in general, here you do see garbage every now and again, and especially if you look into the side streets, you will find garbage there. This district is a perfect example for a place where the problems of the Japanese society collide. We will have a closer look at Shinjuku again later when it's nighttime.
Japan is often praised as one of the safest countries in the world. Crime rates are low, the streets are spotless. But beneath this surface lies a crisis that safety cannot solve: suicide. In 2022, more than 21,000 people in Japan took their own lives. That's about one person every 25 minutes. While the rate has declined from its peak in the late 90s, it remains one of the highest among developed nations.
But why here? Why in Japan? The reasons behind this are complex, but they begin with pressure. There's a lot of pressure to succeed professionally, academically, and socially. Failure is seen as a shame on the family, so failure here in Japan is not an option. When you walk through Tokyo, you start to notice this search for perfection. Everything here seems to be perfect somehow. Everything is clean, everything is organized and very well structured. And you start to understand that there must be a lot of pressure to fit into this society. For a lot of people, this pressure becomes unbearable. Work is another problem here, because a lot of people do unpaid over hours. They work so much that all they do is basically sleep and work, and that on repeat every single day. There's a term here, karoshi, that is an officially recognized term by the government. It means literally death by overwork. All these unpaid extra hours often end in strokes, heart attacks, or even suicide. Loneliness is another huge problem here. Japan has an entire generation of so-called hikikomori, people who completely withdraw from society. Sometimes they live in isolation for many years. It is weird to think of that because Tokyo, for example, is a huge city. There are so many people here. The metros are crowded, people are shoulder on shoulder, and yet many of them do feel lonely. I will talk more about this loneliness problem later on. But for now, we will check out some other dark places of Tokyo, and we'll come back to Shinjuku later at night.
The government has responded. Hotlines advertised on platforms, school programs to raise awareness. But these measures treat symptoms, not the roots. The reality remains, in Japan, silence kills. And that is the cruel contradiction. In one of the safest, most orderly societies on earth, despair remains one of its deadliest forces.
We are in a district that is called Akihabara, and this district is probably the strangest I've seen so far, and I will tell you in a little bit why. Akihabara used to be Japan's powerhouse. It used to be famous for innovation and all the electric gadgets. It was quickly rebuilt after World War II and was an important part of the economy of Japan. However, once the electric boom slowed down, it transformed completely. And nowadays it is more known for anime, for manga, and for video games. Sounds fun at first, right? But if we look closer to the story, it's not that funny anymore. Akihabara is an escape for a lot of people. For some, it's fun, but for others, it's obsession. I am standing right in front of a Pachinko. This is a multi-story arcade, and you will find a lot of those here in Tokyo. It seems fun from the outside at first glance, but there is actually a dark story behind these. Gambling in Japan is illegal. However, these pachinkos are a loophole to make it possible. Here, you play for tokens to win, not for money. And therefore, it is legal, but you can exchange these tokens in stores that are nearby the pachinkos, usually at the side or on the other side of the street. And there you can exchange the tokens for money. So in the end, it is pretty much the same as gambling. These pachinkos are an industry that is worth billions of dollars. Actually, more money flows through these pachinkos than in the casinos of Las Vegas.
In Tokyo, you can hear it before you see it. The metallic roar, the endless clatter of steel balls. Pachinko, Japan's secret addiction.
It is hard to know where to look first in these pachinkos. There's lots of noise, you hear all the coins, you see a lot of light. It is a bit stressful, a bit overwhelming for my senses here. However, these pachinkos really ruin complete families. A lot of people here lose their whole savings. The addiction runs deep. And actually, gambling is the biggest problem here in Japan. It's not drugs or alcohol, it is gambling. And it is weird because Japan is a culture that is extremely well structured, very organized. There's everything in order. And these pachinkos, they reveal the chaos beneath the surface.
Like much of Tokyo, Akihabara hides contradictions. Behind the bright anime billboards and maid cafes lies something darker. Fetish shops, stretching 8 stories high. Manga that blurs the line between innocence and exploitation. A fantasy world that delights millions but unsettles many.
I told you before that Akihabara is for me the most confusing and disturbing district that I have seen so far here in Tokyo, and I will now tell you why. Just here behind me, you can see a sex toy shop. And of course, that's in general nothing bad, but we will now go inside and I will further explain to you why, yes, for me, this actually seems bad. However, I won't be able to really show you that much. Yeah, it doesn't comply with YouTube rules. And also, I honestly don't really want to distribute these kind of images.
Legally, Japan prohibits child pornography, but because these characters are fictional, the law doesn't always apply. As a result, entire industries profit from fantasies that, in many other countries, would be considered unacceptable. It is an uncomfortable contradiction, one that reveals how far escapism can be stretched.
These kind of things that we've seen inside the store are meant to prevent real crimes. The arguments for these stores are that it provides an outlet for men without creating victims. However, critics definitely say that it normalizes these kind of crimes and these kind of attractions. And I think normalization is a huge problem for sure. It's kind of like advertising these things. You see it here so publicly on the streets, and then just outside here in front of the store, there's also a huge poster of girls that look extremely young, and they are dressed up as maidens. I suppose they are adults already. However, they make them look younger than they are, I suppose. It is weird to think that this childish look is apparently attractive to more than enough people. Otherwise, this wouldn't work out, right? We are going to continue our tour at night. We are back in Shinjuku and the vibe has changed completely. It is super crowded, although it is only 7 p.m. And with all the neon lights, the vibe has completely changed. All those neon lights are a little bit intimidating, however impressive, but also overwhelming. You don't really know where to look first. There's lots of noise here, lots of people, feels a bit chaotic. And well, let's make our way through Shinjuku at night now. Before I've talked about the loneliness problem here in Japan, a lot of people feel isolated and alone, and that causes a lot of problems as well. I believe in a society where people are overworked, it is quite normal that friendships are hard to maintain. And yet, Japanese are also human beings. They crave connections and they crave someone to talk to. And here in Japan, you can actually rent people for all kinds of things. You can rent a grandpa for a day, you can rent a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you can rent someone just to talk to. This might sound super strange now, however, it is actually nothing that unusual. I happen to know a girl in Germany who, well, she used to offer her services, and she told me that there are also a lot of men who really pay her just for her company, to watch a football game or to just have someone at home to talk to. And of course, most of the time they wanted more, but that is a thing. Like even in Europe, this happens, so it's nothing that unusual. It is as sad as it sounds, but it gets even worse. In Japan, this loneliness problem seems to be way more intense. On my right and left side, you can see mostly girls offering services, and this is not necessarily offering their body here. Some of them might, but that's really not their primary intention here. What is most disturbing, in my opinion, is that these girls are dressed up like children, basically. They look super young, but apparently that childlike look is attractive for a lot of people. In any case, they offer mostly their services, and their services, that means that they talk to you, they offer you company, they will take you to a bar probably and then just talk to you, and you pay them per hour. In my opinion, the saddest thing is not necessarily those people offering their services. It is more the fact that there are obviously enough people coming here paying for these services. I mean, imagine how lonely you have to feel to pay for someone to fill that hole in your chest that you have to talk to someone, to feel seen. Here behind me you can see an advertisement of men who are offering to pretend to be your boyfriend in exchange for payment, of course. It is another thing that is super strange to see in this case. It's men offering their services. And it's like a brochure that you can have a look at and you see what you like and just choose one, and that person is literally pretending to be your boyfriend. And it's strange to think about it because I cannot imagine to have a connection to someone where you know that person is just with you because you pay him. However, it works. It's a system here. There are lots of these signs here. And it really is nothing unusual here in Japan. I've even heard of a story where one woman killed one of these men because she saw him with another woman, which was his job, but apparently she fell in love with him, was jealous, and that's how it ended. This is how real it must feel. Like, this is how real they can pretend to be in love with you. It's kind of insane to think about.
All these signs are services offered by men and women who are being paid not for sex, but for attention, for conversation, and for the illusion of intimacy. And then there is Kabukicho, Tokyo's biggest red light district, one that exists even though prostitution is illegal in Japan. But everyone knows how to look the other way. Desire here isn't hidden, it's commodified. Behind me there's a building where you can see a sign with the hands like this.
That means that the entry is only for people older than 18 years old. And these buildings offer cleaning services or massages and sometimes companionship. This is the offer that is shown out here. However, everybody knows that they offer more than just companionship. Selling your body here in Japan is illegal, so they often hide these kind of messages behind the words cleaning service or massage. But the weirdest thing is right in front of it, there is a police station. So the law is not really being enforced here.
Tokyo is a paradox. A city where silence feels like respect and yet loneliness echoes through every crowded street. Where perfection is polished on the surface, but below, shadows stretch wide and deep. And maybe that is Tokyo's truth. Not perfection, not ruin, but contradiction. A mirror of humanity itself, capable of building wonders, yet never escaping its own fragility. When you walk these streets, you do not just see Japan, you see us all. Our hopes, our vices, our loneliness, our light.